It's
All right, guys.
about a 500-page manual about how the shellfish industry in the United States should be run. The Office of Water Resources takes care of what's called the growing area, monitoring bacteria and phytoplankton, making sure the waters meet standards for safe shellfish harvest. There's a conference every couple of years in which different parties can change this set of rules. In 2019, there was a change promoted by the FDA and approved by every state except Rhode Island, and how mooring areas are treated. So I'll talk about that again. Next, please. Okay, so this slide over on the left is from 1981. It's a seasonal map showing closures of these areas during the heavy boating season. Rhode Island and other Northeast states for decades have recognized that there are certain areas like Bristol Harbor, like Parker Cove on Cruise, like Outer Woodford Harbor, etc., where it's not appropriate to shellfish as boats. Been working for decades and decades, no problem. We have monitoring data showing acceptable water quality when the boats aren't there. Up until 2019, the states were free to identify mooring areas based on their own experience and their own monitoring data. That changed in 2019. Next, please. It's a very simple change the FDA put in. Is this definition? They now say that a mooring area is any space with more than 20 boats. Notice there's no clarification on size of boats, whether they have a marine sanitation device, etc. on board. In the FDA's eyes, a neighborhood mooring area with a sunfish, a 13-foot whaler, a couple of skiffs, and a day sailor is no different than a harbor with 20 full-size boats. Rhode Island does not agree with this, but it was passed in 2019. In addition, once you have 20 boats in an area, no matter their size or what's happening on the boats, you have this prescribed evaluation that must be carried out. Essentially, in 2019, they went from a data-driven approach where you have monitored data to a risk assessment approach. In November of 2022, Rhode Island was evaluated for how we deal with the NSSP regulations of the growing area. And we were essentially put on notice that because we're not strictly enforcing this 20 boat rule, it's an emerging issue. It's not a problem yet, but essentially saying that the state of Rhode Island doesn't agree with this, which we said at the conference. We did not vote for it. Next, please. Okay, so we have this set of rules we're supposed to be following in the NSSP. We hear about this event coming. We don't know how many boats, maybe 500. Use that as a number. Under the strict interpretation and guidance of the FDA, which includes 100% discharge for every boat, which in Rhode Island's and other states' experience is not 1% increase. But if you follow through their recommended dilution analysis, you would close this area outlined in black over the published portion at about 3,000 acres at depth roughly 20 feet. And then for how long? The FDA wants a study documenting recovery, which we don't have for that area, for 21 days. Next, please. The Office of Water Resources agreed that prescribed approach is not reasonable at all. But we had to do some sort of approach because we're a little bit on notice about how we did the markets. So what we did was kept the number of boats estimated at the same number. These rates the same, but in our experience, less than 1% of boats actually use it. So there's been decades of education for boaters. There's a Clean Vessel Act, providing pump out service and so forth. If you do that, the same number of boats, you get down to about 700 acres outlined there. As I said, we don't have studies for that area, but area B, just to the north, we have many studies showing recovery after a big rainstorm, which if the bacteria numbers are high, in 7 days it recovers. So we have something to defend our decisions, and that's how we came up with the closure as a study. So that's the part of the closure that we're kind of studying. This next part, next please, is the timeline. There's room for improvement here. On Friday, the 21st, we kind of heard about this application. It's up. You know, people hear about it online, whatnot. Started talking about it. There was a weekend on Monday, the 24th. I talked to my supervisors and said, you know, we probably should do something based on what the FDA did to us in November. It was agreed late in the day, the higher ups agreed to it. The closure was written up on the 25th. This is where heroin losses occur, in my opinion. There was a delay until that Friday on the announcement. So the announcement came out just before. In the future, you can press that as soon as the decision is made and closure is written up. Whatever. So at least people have awareness of the plan for it. So that's it in a nutshell. Summing up, there's a new definition in the NSSP of a mooring area is 20 boats, and it requires evaluation. The 500 boats is far above 20 of them. Can't get around that. We do try to minimize the closure impact by working in mitigating factors like the discharge rate when possible. It has statewide implications. This particular event mainly affected the co-op industry, right? The area it is. But a strict interpretation of this 20-boat rule affects the salt mines. There are areas with more than 20 boats next to in the area of long established agriculture. So it's something we're trying to work through with FDA. In 2023, at the conference, Rhode Island, along with Maine and Massachusetts, put in a proposal to get clarification on that 20 boats by excluding, for example, boats without a marine toilet, small vessels. So get a more reasonable number. It's weighted. FDA hasn't either denied it or accepted it. The part we can improve and will improve is getting the announcement out in a long time. So that's some background information. If you have questions, I can try to respond.
Do you have any data, like water quality data, that shows a decrease in water quality around an event like that?
So for the past 2 years, we took samples either the Monday or Tuesday after. Just background, the standard we want is 14 bacteria per 100 mils. We saw 2s and 4s, so no. Background levels.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Not much.
yeah, yes. But we do sample, even though the suburbs, we did go out and sample the soils.
Yeah, well, your data approach makes more sense than that.
Yeah, so
Looking at the risk.
depending how it works out, we're trying to collect data after these events to essentially eventually build a case to say, here it is, we've been out of time, whatever.
And this year's was fine.
Yeah, just background levels on the Tuesday after the weekend. Also, yes,
One of the slides that said that the criteria was no pump out facilities. If there were some pump out facilities available, would that impact the length or size of the closure?
it could. So it becomes a mitigating factor. So how it impacts is the illicit discharge rate. So the FDA default is that every person on every boat is just discharging over, which is highly unreasonable. I believe. We in the closure area calculation that resulted in the 708 closure, we ratcheted that down to 1% based on experience in Rhode Island general. If there was, for example, right in the location of the event, a pump out boat or a pump out barge or a marine with a pump out, we could maybe ratchet that discharge rate down another order of magnitude to 0.1, which would just limit the closure to much smaller than everything.
Sure. You mentioned aquaculture and a 20-boat mooring field. Is there a range of how far you should separate it currently?
That's what, no, that's what's, if you flip that,
Yeah.
the one has the definition. That is the extent of their definition, 20 boats in an area, not density like acre or anything like that. So, there's some interpretation there of what an area is. Yeah.
So you actually change, the rules aren't the same with ponds. You do have the areas that have more than 20 boats, and you don't scrutinize that one. You close the bay because there's more than 20 boats. You change, in other words, the rules are different for the agriculture down in the pond.
No,
Okay.
they're not different. If there was an area with 500 boats next to an agriculture lease, we would have, based on this new definition.
So if it's a small aquapalooza with its 50 boats, it's still gonna close.
Possibly.
Okay, so, okay,
Yeah.
answer the question. Okay, thank you.
This sounds like
this could be really problematic going forward, any area could be Barrington Beach, with this, Rocky Point, somebody decides. Let's have a party together, which we're hosting. And if it's an habitual thing, like year after year, that we don't get this style. Even ground, that's important ground. Protection from the wind and certain conditions. The upper bay is closed. That wouldn't make it.
Yeah, no, I understand, I've heard from a few people.
The issue. Wouldn't be issue.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I have another one, and there's another 100 towards the side that goes the whole little bit.
Yeah, a big chunk of the area is prohibited around process. But you're right, in the concept.
And you had that acreage, you're gonna be right up behind it.
Yeah. There have been events that we've gone through the procedure, for example, fireworks on Whitford and off of it. For instance. We haven't taken action because of the duration. Typically, people show up for fireworks at 3, 4 in the afternoon, hang out, watch the fireworks, most of it on. There is some, even with the new definition, some leeway for interpretation. Essentially, we're trying to take a reasonable approach. We spent hundreds of hours of staff time last summer going through every town mooring field and every continent, looking for areas with ones on roads, doing a dilution calculation based on the default, and then based on what we thought were reasonable discharge limits and so forth. Thus far, we have not changed the classification of waters in those areas. Most of the areas that have waters on boats with very small vessels that. So most people in water resources do not represent threat. So it's an issue in transition with FDA. Yeah.
Let's say this event just continues going forward. Is there a number of readings that you can have post-event that would allow you not to have to close it with the FDA, or is it simply the number of votes and you have to do it?
If somebody could limit, well, let me step back. If we collect data, which we have been doing, it can show repeatedly that there isn't change in water quality. We could use that to reduce the area of pollution. The way it's written up right now,
No,
the actual area with the
didn't
vessel
hear him on.
Okay.
Yeah,
would be closed, but beyond that would not. So if somebody can say all the vessels in the event are going to be in the constrained area, that area beyond it would not.
So it doesn't matter how many years of readings you have, you still have to do something. Just
During the event, but if the event is gone by, I don't know when it is, by Sunday afternoon or something, and we have water quality data on Monday showing it's acceptable, then we'll go on Monday. Once we have that data.
We have a question online here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the problem is, Jim, who do we call? Who's organizing this thing? What?
I'll read the question so everyone can hear what it says. It says Rhode Island has no discharge regulations for the bay. Why not enforce the law and require the Aquapalooza organizer to have a pump out vessel available for the event? That's Jim Boyd.
It's very informal to show up, so there's nobody to go after.
Yeah, how do you do all that?
You're not on social media nowadays.
What if you go to walk off all kinds of areas to the camp and the ocean stuff. But this guy, Derek Lee, he just boat girl from Norway, he started 10 years ago.
Yeah.
What about it on this, it's like, it's from the moments and stuff that I hear, really want, you know what I mean, because it's such chaos. Is there any on that end, or?
Going back to, it's not organized. Where people show up and tie up and raft for the day, you can't control that. I mean, it happens every weekend at Dog Beach, Macro Cove. And people just show up, drop their anchor and hang out. There's nothing you can do really to control that.
know that the police presence there, on the patrols and stuff and all that for.
So what we're talking about is affecting the shelter area.
Yeah, right, I mean, absolutely, that's, yeah, it's a problem, it's, yeah.
It's not so much that they're, I don't, there's that place that are not bothering anybody and they can still do that when they want to do. You know, go over the side. But if it's happening with the shellfish area, there's a huge problem. But in these guys, you know, like, hey, you might have to miss 2 days. Oh, really? He's gonna pay me for those 2 days. The state going to get money? No,
I don't know. It's a conflict in use. If somebody else who organized it, ask them to move to some nice place and put their boys. That won't affect them. I don't know.
doesn't appear to be organized.
All right, anyone else have any more comments, questions for Dave? Well, thank you, that's great. Our next item on the agenda is the Quantico Pond Oyster Moratorium.
Right, change it over.
I have a letter from one of the aquaculture farms in Quantico Pond. It's 2 sentences. If I could read it, might for clarity. From Jim Arnell. I gave you thanks for the heads up. I don't have a strong opinion either way. I had my farm stolen from a few years ago by out-of-state campers. So I think the moratorium only matters as much as people know it exists or know, but don't care anyway. So I lean to continue the moratorium, but would not be upset if DEM decides otherwise. I have had a verbal conversation with another shellfish farmer in the pond. And just before I came here, I was talking to a wild harvester on the shore of Quantico Pond. And he was really proud of himself. He found 1 wild oyster in the pond yesterday. So they wanted to send like.
Thanks, Jeff.
Well, I think it's called dates.
I think I interpret this wrong. It's a prohibition on oyster harvest, not a prohibition on more leases.
Quantity's been closed for a number of years for any oyster harvesting, commercial or recreational, and try and replenish the stock.
Yeah, understood.
This is just up for another reason.
Yeah.
Right, Eric?
Yes.
Is it working? Is it working?
I'll tell you in a minute.
Yeah, Eric
Commercial.
Eric has the floor, he's gonna present.
Okay, so I'll give you guys all hear me? Okay, I'll give you just a brief background on, how we got to today. And then I'm gonna walk through, kind of a status update. Last time we discussed this with the SAP was 2021. So I'll update you on what we've seen in the pond for the resource since 2021, and then talk about the work that's ongoing and we'll do, and then I'll culminate that with the division's perspective recommendation. So this goes back a ways. It goes back to 2007. In part, that's when the first equip oyster restoration phase was being rolled out. And so the division, in particular, did a survey of Quantico and they didn't find any oysters. There was a 3-year moratorium initiated. They also, soon after that, started what was the first round of the equip restoration. Back in 2013, there was a survey. It found that there wasn't a lot of oysters, there weren't any oysters, so that moratorium was extended. In 2015, it changed a little bit. We had done at that point a pond-wide survey, not just of Quantico, but a number of areas, trying to catch up on some of the original equip restoration that was done back in 2009 to 2011. That work, equip has changed a lot since it was originally initiated back then. There was no monitoring back then. It was kind of scattered. And so the division was trying to see what was left of that original restoration work. And so we looked in all of the areas that had equip, some other areas. We did not find any oysters outside of those restoration reefs in 2016. So we went back to the SAP, and at that point it was extended
for 5 years, and so that brought us to 2021. And in that period between 2016 and 2021, there was a new phase of restoration that was kicked off. There's kind of two big programs that have gone off through there. One is what we call our fish habitat production reefs. Those are experimental reefs that were created for the purpose of trying to quantify the response of fish, crustaceans, other mobile invertebrates to the creation of oyster reefs. And then there's another project that's the EQIP oyster restoration that has a different goal. That is kind of just broadly to try to restore oyster populations, in the locations that, that we're doing EQIP. So Kwani is one of those. So that was rolling from 2017 up until 2021. Again, there was some survey work there. It was limited compared to what I'm going to talk about today. It did not find that really there was any recruitment outside of those restoration reefs. We discussed it with the SAP. And at the same time, there was some other programs that were teeing up. And I won't go through all of that, but there was a recommendation to extend it for 2 years, which brings us to November 15th, 2023. And so the SAP requested that it would stay closed for 2 years, and we come back and revisit it about this point. And so during that time from 2021 till now, and I'll give you a little more detail in a minute, there has been continued, restoration and monitoring work. We also started collecting field work to support the development of a habitat suitability index model to help us better understand where are the most or best locations for oyster survival. And as part of that, again, it's similar to what we had done in 2016, but much, much more intense, where places like Quanakatog, we're really scouring that pond to ensure that we try to find every natural oyster. And when we find, really even a oyster, there's a number of, techniques we use, monitoring techniques, measuring things outside of that oyster so we can better understand what are the environmental conditions where that oyster is to help us try to determine where else they might be. So that's been ongoing. In addition, we've started the Shellfish Restoration and Enhancement Plan. Some folks in the room have participated in that.
Hey, Eric, sorry to interrupt. The slides are not advancing on the Zoom presentation.
Okay, what slide are you looking at?
Kwani Pond Oyster Moratorium. Are you still on that slide?
No.
Sorry.
No, that's good. Just give me a second. I'll just do it manually. Okay. I don't think I'm not sharing the right one.
Oh, that's weird. All right, so where's my mouse?
So this one. But that's not the one that's.
No.
Let me go like this. Okay.
And then resume slideshow.
Okay. I want your Zoom toolbar so I can drop something in the chat. See it. Over here. There we go. Sorry, we're getting there. Okay. Okay.
It was 6:20 and then yeah, they're all well. That's good. It's not this, I've been looking at this project for a while. 90 fish boats, the shell, in a designated area there. And then we go back a couple weeks later, we put 90 fish boats worth of spat on shell, stuff like that. First, the week before 4th of July this year, that's what point on shells, is now some of it's bigger than before. And we come in there for measure,
Okay.
and on one shell, we'll find out that I think the average is 36. Yeah, oysters. And we go on our farm and then. Yeah, certainly they do sure, but keep in mind.
Okay.
I'm
I'm not sure why.
Wow.
Okay. Sorry for some, we're having Zoom struggles here. So I think so. I think so. Okay. So I'll give you a quick rundown on the restoration work. So I'm going to just show a couple of little, chunks of results from the two different programs. So this is a bar chart showing the average length of oysters that are living on our fish habitat production reefs. And some of these are because you saw them back in 2021. So we're just trying to stay consistent here. And what this is intended to show is back in 2019 is right when we started to get to the point with these projects where we started to have some oysters reach reproductive maturity. And so I just wanted you to see that, not surprisingly, these oysters have continued to grow. We still have a slug of oysters that are reproductively mature on those reefs. On our other type of restoration reefs, which are the equip restoration reefs, I think we're sharing two different screens here. We have a broader size distribution. And so one reason you see this is because every year, I'm not sure if folks could hear Jeff, but the way that equip works is someone, we designate a specific area and then they work in that area over typically like 4 years. So for over that period, when you get to year, let's say 4, there's a 3-year-old reef, a 2-year-old reef, a 1-year-old reef, and a reef being created. And so a couple of things that are nice about that is one, it gives you over time this kind of broader size spectrum, and in the hopes that you haven't put all your, oysters or eggs in one basket, that if there's a bad year, you're still having things move through the system. And so these blue lines are showing the size distribution of oysters that are still present in the equip. So you can see there's still, there's a decent slug of animals that are mature. And what we like to see is there are still animals that are going to come forwards and continue to mature through that. Since 2020, we've put about 1.5 million oysters in the Quani. Now, granted, we're putting most of those in a small, like a 1-inch size. So there's a mortality that occurs. But we have been, concentrating on putting oysters in there. And like you see here, right now we have a mix of juveniles and mature oysters there. Sorry, I have to manually advance both screens separately for some reason.
See you in the chat.
I'll wait on the chat. There's too many windows open. And so right now, this restoration and some of our research is going to continue through 2024. And I'll try to speed this up a little bit. Like I said, as part of that SNP funded program, we've been doing survey work to really try to, find natural oysters out in the wild to better understand, what is the habitat that they're occurring in. And in Quaney, over the last 2 years, we've surveyed over 150,000 square feet. So that's almost 3.5 acres, but it's not just a block. It's all, like a ribbon along the shoreline and the coves. And so we've covered a lot of ground. As part of that, we've found 9 different sites that have received recruitment at least since 2017. At some point it's hard to tell exactly when, but 2016 was the last time we went through there. So we know this has occurred since there. And of those, 7 of those 9 sites still have living oysters. So there are 2 sites that had some recruitment, but there's nothing alive there right now. But unfortunately, densities at these sites are really low. At all of the sites, the densities are less than 10 per meter squared, and those just aren't densities that are really self-sustainable unless other, recruitment comes in or there's some other intervention, like some type of overseeding. And so quickly, some of the kind of research and I'll call it guidance that's been moving forward. So like I said, we have restoration scheduled through the EQIP program. In the eastern part of the pond through 2024. We also have those FHP sites that are part of a research project through 2024. That SNP data that I was talking about, we collected, that is, again, being collected so that we can develop this habitat suitability model, not just for the ponds, but for the whole bay. This is feeding into the shellfish restoration plan. And that image on the right is just, showing you what an earlier iteration of a shellfish suitability model looks like, so we can try to better understand which areas are better suited for oyster restoration, and that can be used to help as one piece of information that can go into a larger discussion about where should restoration occur. There's also the shellfish restoration plan that's moving forwards. In 03, that's this year, but the spring of this year we had our kickoff meeting. We had a series of in-person meetings. This fall we're kind of bringing that forwards again. We're going to have the steering committee meet hopefully a few times. We're trying to develop a survey, an online survey that we can reach out to folks, and then back towards the winter into early spring we're going to start up the in-person meetings again. If you want more information on this, you can just ask me or check out the website. So in summary, what have we seen since we last presented on this in 2021? There's still mature oysters, reproductively mature oysters out there in Quaney. There's been about 1.5 million oysters put into that system since 2020. Based on the surveys we've done over the last 2 years that have been pretty robust, we found limited recruitment outside of those restoration reefs, and those sites that have had recruitment have low densities, less than about 10 per meter squared. We do have restoration and research scheduled to continue for the next 2 years, so there will still be more oysters and more monitoring occurring in that system. We're not just walking away from it. We are developing that habitat suitability model, which we expect to have completed by July. And that feeds into the SREP process, which is also moving forwards. So based on all that, the status right now is that the harvest moratorium ends this November. The division is recommending that we continue the moratorium for 2 more years. That would line it up with Bissell and Fox Island. So at that point, not in November, but in the summer, early fall of 2025, we would come back and talk about both those systems. And by that time, at least specific to Quaney, we expect that, that would give more time. Perhaps we get more recruitment, but it would allow us to monitor those sites that we have gotten recruitment to see if they persist or if they fizzle out. It also lets us work through the habitat suitability index to better understand which areas might be best suited in Quaney and work through the SRAP to better understand how do, stakeholders that want to participate in that and participate specifically in the discussion of the coastal ponds, what are their priorities for some of those systems, including Quaney? And that is my presentation.
Does anyone have any questions?
Are you taking questions?
Yes,
Would it be helpful to put like a half acre oyster farm in there to enhance the area?
yeah, there are some oyster leases in there. I should know off the top of my head, 1, 2, 3, 4 leases in there. But we do have, so I think what would be helpful to us is to better understand kind of in this quantitative manner of where are the most suitable locations for oyster survival. We think, obviously we think we know, but that's what some of the HSI work is really supposed to bear out. And that'll help us better understand if we have those sanctuaries in the right area or whether there's other areas that, are highly suitable. Maybe we should put oysters there, or maybe we should try to arrange it so that we think that, they could be a receiving area for larvae. So right now we have those spots that have some recruitment. It's, to some degree they are suitable, larvae settled there, but they're not, persisting. And so that's what we were hoping we'd see over the next 2 years since there's the oysters there. But, one of the things about, and I don't know if you were going to speak to this, Jeff, but for an oyster, your commercial oyster operation, really the goal is different than what we're trying to do with the restoration reefs, where once those animals, there's different traits we're looking for in terms of like a restoration oyster than a commercial oyster. And once that, and I don't mean to speak for you, Jeff, but once that oyster in a farm is of size that it can be harvested and go to market, it leaves. And that's typically at a size well below what would be mature. But there's also a difference in lineage that, and not, I'm happy, I could talk all day about it, but specifically in Quaney, some of the research that we did was using different sources of oysters to try to evaluate how they perform or how they respond in the restoration siting. So some of them were hatchery oysters that were, although they were reared for restoration, they came out of a hatchery and they were mixed with some commercial lines. And we put those out in addition to lineages that we collected from Green Hill Pond and from Narrow River, had them spawn so that we had these kind of natural or wild oysters out adjacent to hatchery oysters. And we've done similar stuff with Equip where we specifically manipulate, we work with growers to try to manipulate the source of the oysters that they're putting out, and then we can monitor how they respond over time. And what we found is that, in Quaney, and this shakes out likely elsewhere, is that, some oysters are better adapted for certain locations. So what we found in Quaney is that the oysters that were sourced from Green Hill performed much better than the hatchery oysters and still better than the oysters that came from Narrow River. Some of that might have to do with salinity or disease tolerance, but over time. And so now when we move forwards with work in Quaney, folks are putting oysters that have originated from Green Hill Pond as broomstock been spawned. And then they go on the Equip program. The way it works is it goes on an aquaculture lease, like Jeff, does in Winnipeg. They grow them out to size and they put them on a reef. And at that point, they kind of leave that nursery aquaculture farm environment.
I've been helping out at one of the oyster farms in Quaney this for about 6 months now. Maybe one day just because they need help, being a guy. I think this whole program is tremendously successful. I think it's a great move. It helps aquaculture because we get paid, but we also have the experience on how to grow the oysters. So I don't think having any more, another oyster farm is really going to make a difference. One of the things you have to realize is, as all everybody here knows, is lots of critters like to eat the spac, like to eat the recent larvae. I've been doing it 30 years. I put on for million oysters a year. Out of my ponds, carpeted with oysters because all the little critters get hungry. And that's part of the whole reason we do this is for habitat enhancement. And so I'm Jerry, we've been finding baby sea bass in our draw bags, like every bag, in the last years. You've been finding scallops in every other bag, little thumbnail size, quarter size scallops, so. That's the goal of this whole program, it's not open, and they are not really pretty oyster. Because they're spat on shell, I got spat on shell the week before 4th of July, so it's quarter size now. And on each shell, I did the measuring. It was 36 on each individual shell, I have 90 fish toes of it. Ready to go back over the side with Eric's consent on where it goes, so I think this whole thing is a tremendously good program. I'd like to see it. And the closure is fine with the other people that utilize Quantum Pond.
Let's go ahead. You can,
Just don't forget there's some chat.
yeah, I have one chat question, but I was gonna.
The intent of this moratorium is to protect the restoration work.
Protect the restoration work and then as well as these natural sites that are receiving recruitment right now to try to see what happens with them. Just because there's not a lot of oysters there.
So. But yeah,
Yeah.
all right, well, in my head, it was because there's not enough oysters in commercial fishery, well, that's like almost everywhere. But I see, yeah, I just want to.
You get a spawn every once in a while, it's like Vegas spawn every once in a while, like they're perfectly ideal. And I don't know if Eric knows this, but the word I've gotten is that Quaney, say where they're doing this in Quaney had a humongous starfish population that just rolled over the beds where this restoration is going on. And kind of, it's bad, it was a bad thing. But who knows how often that happens.
This year, Jeff? Oh, you can see him.
That's what Jim and Jim.
There is a question in the chat, but anybody else have a question before I go to that?
Do you study what's going on in other states, like Connecticut and Massachusetts?
Yeah,
If it's an applicable to your alignment?
yes, so we don't like physically go do work there, but we do have, there's been a coastwide team that I sit on that meets, twice a year. And, it depends on exactly like what the topics are that we're discussing.
I had 20 minutes to get my stuff out of the hatchery on Cape Cod this year. Behind me was Barnstable officers, Chatham officers, like people that work for the towns. Because they were also doing the same project, and there was about 3 or 4 people like myself, and everybody else was like harbor, Shellfish. Whatever they were.
So the short answer is yes. Mass is a little more challenging just because it's run by towns, like Jeff says, rather than the state entity. And so we don't reach out to all of them, but we definitely do talk to other states and regions and programs that do this.
Well, each town has an X amount of budget in wherever they get their money to do things, projects like this. And a bunch of the towns on that Cape feel that it's really successful.
So Ben and John.
The question for the feasibility index, you guys looking at solidity too, or looking at like those maybe
Yeah, that's a great question. So in terms of kind of the physical parameters, we want to, we have the subaqueous soils data, what's the bottom, obviously depth. We have a big effort, like a data mining effort to try to capture all of the water quality data that exists out there. So that's Salt Pond Coalition. That's all the data that we've collected over time on our survey work. And sometimes that's just a snapshot here and there. In addition to, we've put, I'm sorry, I don't know how many, 25 like temperature and salinity loggers out in strategic places. So we're trying to accrue this time series. And the reason is, so let's just say, to walk you through it, we have a site that has oysters. We want to understand what those conditions are, not only there so that we can better understand, okay, here are the sites that have oysters. What are the conditions there? How does that relationship work? And some of that is temperature and salinity. Some of it has to do with, the everything from algae communities to substrate. But that all goes into a model and tries to tell us, here's the importance of some of these parameters. And then the next step is to try to project that out and say what areas have those types of conditions. And so that's where it's really important to try to have this broader sense of water quality, because temperature, thermal maxes, freshwater inputs, salinity, those almost always rise to the top of something that's important.
Just because, and I know a lot of places that have productive natural ground, like Connecticut, River, 5% of what get from water. They're very natural that areas, they're all lower. I was wondering if that has something to do with it. I know Foster's Cove, for instance, like I see that area that has a lot of water.
Yep, and that holds true a lot of the places that still have oysters. Usually it's a combination of that lower salinity or highly variable salinity, where you, at least at times, you get lower salinities, and whether that's on these pulses of groundwater or after rains. And a lot of times it's also that it's closed, or it has been closed. And so it's that combination of having some brood stock in combination with these lower salinities has allowed it to persist over time. But there are areas, and I won't reveal them, but I'm sure many of you know them, arguably better than me, that at times even, they're not in a lower salinity regime, but under, when conditions are right and you get a good spawn, they will catch a set and they will hold oysters for several years. But then it's, as to what causes their demise, a lot of times they freeze out. There's like a low tide during a real cold day and you'll see, a die off or something like that. But sorry, John, you had a question?
Yeah, it's not a little bit on the same question. Like the water quality, keeping track of the water quality and aspects of it. What ones survive and the areas don't. You could use that sort of cause as well, like a common denominator between areas that trying to do restoration don't produce. And we can apply that same information toward.
Yeah, and that is like the long-term goal. And so one of the benefits of doing this oyster HSI is, like that water quality data set I spoke about, like once that's built, now you're just swapping out oyster for quahog. Yes, you need the input data on the quahog. So where are quahogs and what are the conditions there? But when you go to extrapolate it out, if you have this large data set of water quality or of subaqueous soils, which we're building for oysters, then we could use that for quahog. You can use it for steamer. You can use it for eelgrass. You can use it really for anything. It's just a matter of taking that input data of where are quahogs and what are the conditions there. And so that's very doable. And then there's a question online from Jim Boyd. I may have answered it, but I'll answer it directly if I haven't. So he asked, does the division have a conclusion as to what level aquaculture may be seeding oysters, if any, within the ponds and bay outside of an aquaculture lease? And as far as a conclusion, no. I mean, some of it, I think, stems from just the logistics of, are there animals on leases that are reaching maturity? And there's a very small percentage of those. I think, those would kind of be, I'll just say, the uglies or oysters that don't really have a home in the market. If folks can move them, through another means, that's fine. But in some producers, some aquacultures, those wind up just kind of staying on the lease. And so those do get larger. Whether or not they contribute, we don't know. As a colleague at Northeastern, as part of her dissertation, and it aligns with the SNP work that we're doing, sampled a lot of the locations that we were targeting, that we were finding natural oysters. One, to try to better understand what is the genetic diversity of those kind of natural oysters, but then also taking samples from the oysters that we've put out through restoration to try to see if, if you can connect those dots. And, there's a lot of variation year to year with those kind of source animals that we use in restoration. So that might be challenging, but that is the goal. But we don't have, to Jim's question, we don't have a conclusion or direct evidence that aquaculture is seeding outside of the leases, and it could provide some, but I think it's likely would be a small portion. Yeah.
Question for Ben. Ben, could you kind of ballpark a guess on the number of the aquacultures that are using the triploid oysters, which are sterile and they don't produce larvae and they grow fatter and quicker, I guess, as opposed to the diploid?
It's not really.
Well, so the polyploidy oysters, the triploids, they are bred to have negative functional, which makes them sterile. Yeah, they don't go into the natural spawning cycle. Now, in some places like down south, where oysters go in their spawn cycle perhaps multiple times a year, with the water's out and run, it could make a big difference in the oyster growth because it's not going to put that energy into spawning. It has been used in Rhode Island. Some people use it, some people don't. A lot of people have tried it, and my general feeling is that it's not very widespread. There are some growers that prefer it. Possible number for one, and I think a lot of guys realize that in our water, given the temperature of the spawn cycle, it doesn't make that much of a difference.
Well, I know the SOS problem they're having is the diet point. I'm not aware 20 at one point, but just a minute. So you think maybe 70% diet point, 30% diet point, or
It's the vast majority.
Mike, I can answer that a little, if you don't mind, please. I know the guy that developed, Stan Allen personally, that developed the triploids. I've grown triploids. I've had some years where they worked. I've never put my whole, don't grow any money in one basket, that's for sure. Growing a triploid under ideal conditions, they grow faster, they hold more meat. They're fine, but they are the pickiest, finickiest thing you could try to grow. It does not always. Where when you stick with a standard diploid, which is a spawning oyster, they might take longer to grow, but realistically, you want your oysters to at least overwinter one winter in Rhode Island so that the shell gets thick enough to make a nice market and cup. Where you can grow a triploid maybe in one season, and it'll be really, the shell will be really fragile and breakable, but they're really, really difficult. Everything has to be perfect. Real food.
Right. Any more questions? Any comments, questions? If not, would anyone on the staff like to make a motion?
continue for 2 more years, so we'll talk about.
Yeah,
I'll make a motion to continue the moratorium and monitor that total on for 2 more years as requested by.
Second that.
should we put, kind of like until November 2025, just to, the clarity. And this is,
that okay, Jeff? We would, I think our goal is to line it up with the Bissell Cove Fox Island. So that's November 15th, 2025. Okay. Who seconded? Was it you, Mike?
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor? The motion passes unanimously.
David, I'd just like to say one thing. This presentation has been so encouraging. It's really impressive. Thank you about it.
No, thanks.
Yeah, I think it's really working. It's one of those things where I'm really happy with what everybody that works for me is really happy with what we do. So that the baby ospreys that we had on some of our equipment last summer, and this, we actually built a nest on some of our stuff.
You can come back. I'm trying to find your other presentation.
There, last year they had 2 babies that flew away. This year the nest went up.
I'm not, you know what?
More osprey around.
It's just like,
See
this.
There are so many ospreys that are in the ponds, it's fantastic.
I don't know why. I don't know why we're seeing that screen. I had to go through and advance each slide in both.
Weird.
Okay, I think you're.
Oh, it's working. Okay.
We'll see.
And then screen. Yes.
So I just wonder if we should be doing that instead. But
Screen 2 worked first time. And then if you hit resume presentation.
okay.
We're good. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the shellfish harvest seasons.
This is what I'm here listening for, you know, so I'm sorry.
Excuse me, what? Can you repeat that, please? Someone online said something?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Um,
right, we'll just continue.
might want to just mute all. The participants click on this.
Oh, it's on this screen, that's fine.
Yeah, I don't know, not sure what, but it's super confusing.
Yeah, I don't, so half of it's on this screen, half is on this screen. Okay. There we go. There we go. Okay.
Yes, you're gonna present and then we're gonna go area by area.
Yeah. Yep. All right, everyone good? All right, so we're gonna start with Greenwich Bay sub areas 1 and 2. Yeah. All right, so the current season in effect, which is the default schedule, has shore digging open daily in the area. And then other than shore digging, the default schedule is the 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, starting the second Wednesday of December through the end of April, excluding December 25th and January 1st. And just as a reminder, as you all probably know, December may include up to 48 hours of permitted shell fishing. So.
I start the ball rolling. It opens on Wednesday, the 13th this year. It's the latest, literally, to open. Christmas is a Monday. So I would ask that we add December 19th, Tuesday. December 21st, Thursday. That Monday is Christmas, so the 26th is a Tuesday. I'd like to add that day too.
Okay, December
26th.
Sorry, December 19th, December 20.
21.
Okay, yep. Sorry. I'm good.
The 26th, which is the Tuesday after Christmas. So that's a wash as far as adding and subtracting. And the 28th, that Thursday. And according to my math, that's only 11 possible openings, which is 44 hours. So we don't need to put any caveats on the schedule in case we get full. Yeah.
Thirteenth is the Wednesday, isn't it?
Yeah, 13th is the Wednesday.
13th, okay.
Yep, that's the starting day.
But you know, it starts.
First day, yeah.
Um,
So default schedule, including these additional days.
well, the 13th would already be one of the days.
Yeah,
So
exactly,
the added
so-
days are Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that's the 19, 20.
Mhm.
19, 21, 26, and 28.
Actually, yeah, we're adding 3 days, but 4 days, but with a wash on Christmas, since we lose that Monday.
Tuesday, yeah. Okay.
That good for, okay, do we have a second? Second by Jeffrey. And we have a discussion on the motion. Yes, go ahead, John.
Make a little more sense to open it a week earlier. It's quite a bit late with the rain. It moves it there with the rain. Now you're better off until the gaining a day earlier in December. You know, say it doesn't rain a week before that, but it rains the week after. You're not gonna get those days anyway.
So adding one more day,
Well, open it a week. Summer. I mean, you know, in stone, it has to be the second Wednesday.
Well, I don't think there's a stone involved, but it's regulation. So that's what, you know, we came up with 30 years ago. I don't know, it used to be we were the only show in town way back when, and you could do it, but now, when I'm told we're not, so getting close to the Christmas day is more advantageous for price and marketing stuff. So, it's always been, this is late though, I mean, it's always been the second Wednesday, so it could be the 8th. Or it could be the 13th.
Yeah, but kind of what I'm saying is it's okay to add it after the second Wednesday, but it didn't, could you possibly add it before the first Wednesday? I mean,
so the first Monday, maybe, with that kind of aligns with. the
yeah,
That changes regulation.
I don't know what is, if you can do that, honestly.
no, you put 5 days in 1 week, but it's arranged that week, they've gone anyway.
Well, that's how it works. Last year we did the same thing and it rained all December. We didn't get a day and we got 1 day. And so this is just the way we do it. We try to maximize the 2-week period between before Christmas and you know, New Year's. And you know, it could rain on a Wednesday, so at least you got the Monday, Tuesday in. That's kind of our thinking on that, and just. Especially since we're gonna be having the other area possibly opening, which is on the same rainfall event as this. I'm concerned that we just have too much product too early. The price. Because the other area is due to open that Monday, the 11th. Yep. Okay. Well, potentially.
Any more comments? Thoughts on the motion? All right. Yeah. All set? Yeah. Okay, I'd like to call a vote on the motion. All in favor? All opposed? Okay. The motion passes 9-1.
Second that one.
Jeff Grant, same initials.
Oh,
Good call.
Oh, sorry.
okay, the other guy.
All right, the next area is Bissell Cove, Fox Island, which is tagging area 7D. And same thing, the default schedule for the area, open daily for shore digging. And then other than shore digging, the default is open 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, beginning on the second Wednesday of December through the end of April, excluding December 25th and January 1st.
I don't know. We're used to transplanting this area, that's why it was made this. I don't know anybody that's fishing it. What's going on with the person here? No, I. No, those we see it or. Why? I second that, yeah.
So did you make the motion? To.
No, I.
I think if we don't make any motion, just goes to the
There's-
default schedule, so.
True. It just goes to the default if you don't make a motion.
If we do need to make a motion, I'll make the motion to leave it as is.
Okay,
I second that people.
okay.
Moving
Yeah, we
along.
can also approve by consent. We can also just approve by consent. Let's just practice that.
Are we making,
Yes, so the motion was made
Okay.
by,
Dave?
Mike.
Dave.
Oh,
I made
you-
a motion, he seconded.
Okay, sorry. Thank you for calling. Okay, any questions on the motion? Discussion on the motion? Okay, if not, we'd like to go to a vote. All in favor of the motion? To go with default schedule, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Are you voting? Okay. Motion passes.
how many total was that? 10. Just add it in later. All right, the next area is Bristol Harbor. The tagging area is 3B. And the current default schedule is shore digging is open daily. Other than shore digging, default schedule is January 2nd through January 31st, open 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. only on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Then Friday or February 1st through April 30th, open daily. And May 1st through January 1st, closed.
Any thoughts? If there's no discussion, we can approve by consent. All right, let's do it. Don't.
Yeah. Oh. Thank you.
Hey, can I ask you a general question? Why is every place shore digging allowed open daily? I mean, does anybody shore dig is? Is this enforced? Because every single one of these is shore digging daily. Anybody can take much?
But it's not commercial, I don't think. We only days in the school.
I believe that means recreational shellfish, yeah.
It just means recreational shore digging.
But it doesn't say that.
It does, you know, it has the same thing.
Okay. Thank you. for
Sorry.
That was a part of it. Yeah. For Providence River, if people want to, it's allowed. All right.
Okay, next on the agenda is the Providence River harvest summary.
So here I have the data for the Providence River landings from 2023. The data was updated as of today. So as of today, the river has been open 12 days out of the 13 potential days open up until this point in time. There is a potential by the end of the year when the schedule was created for a potential of 43 days total. At this point in time, we're at the potential, it could have been open for 33 days. It was only open 12 of those days.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can you make a better door than a window?
Sorry, I'm out there.
Can we turn the lights on maybe a little bit?
Something.
Yeah, lights I think are behind Jerry over there.
I get it, but
Right? They're like over actually on the right hand side.
You're right hand side.
Just play around with them. Is that a little better? Okay, thank you. So far it's been open 12 out of 33 days. So it's been pretty rainy this summer, as you all know. And the total harvest out of the area for 2023 so far is 4.6 million clams. And for reference here, I have the harvest from 2021 and 2022. See if I can get my cursor to go over here. So, so this is this year's data. So for reference, in 2021, it was open 15 days. And a total of 4.7 million were harvested. So we're getting close to being sort of on track with what we saw in 2021 for the harvest rates. The average landings per day that we have found are about 370,000 clams. So these are total counts that we're portraying here in the data. So that is a little less than what you were harvesting last year, but higher than what we were seeing in 2021. The range and landings per day on any given day was between, the lowest was 279,000 and a high of 410,000 in a day. The number of harvesters on any given day on average was 188, which is up from the last 2 years. In 2021, the average was 151. The year before, the average was 174. So we're seeing an uptick in the average number of harvesters out there. But if you look at the days that people were out there harvesting, we saw the highest number of harvesters on a given day was on the actual opening day. So there was 202 people out there on the day it opened on May 22nd. Now, the lowest number was right before the holiday in July. It was on July 3rd. So it seems that at the beginning of the season, there was a big push. A lot of people were out there, and it sort of adjusted to sort of an average, predictable number now on any given day. And then finally, the average number of clams harvested per license in any given day was 1,970, which is actually lower than the last 2 years where it was above 2,000 clams harvested by any given license on any given day.
Tops, that's the next and top.
Yeah, so and here's the breakdown of what we're seeing harvested out of there. So 84% of it is little neck. And then 15% is top. Yes, Brennan.
How do you calculate the bigs? If you speak to by now, is that in the pieces? Like, how do you do that?
So we have a conversion that we do to convert it to a count from the pounds if it's been reported as that.
Like 3 inches per pound?
Yeah, there's like a calculated like actual factor that we use. Yeah. So I guess at this point, are there any questions? Yes, Mike.
I was wondering, and this will go to when we get to a little later on to the 3-to-1 exit and all that stuff. Is there any way through Shellfish you can determine what types of licenses are accessing this? In other words, is it 20% over 65? Is it, 3% students?
Yeah, absolutely. We can look at the breakdown of what license is out there harvesting.
Then I would buy each year, like if we get the 4 categories for each year.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
That would be very helpful.
Yep. Okay.
Eric, why are there more shelters out there?
Okay.
Are they all harvested?
Okay, I guess this is time to talk about. At my board meeting, it looks like the 18 days that we were given by Marine Fishery Council will not be hit by the end of October. They still could be, but it probably won't. It was suggested by the board that we look into adding the days to the December schedule to make up so we get the full 18 plus the December schedule.
Okay.
I don't believe there's going to be a November Marine Fishery Council meeting.
No, October 2nd.
So we do not have currently a way to get that on the schedule if we want that.
Yes, that's correct.
I'm gonna defer to Jeff in a sec on this, but basically, we almost have to make a recommendation without knowing what the number of days are. If we want to do that as a group. So I guess the first question before we get into the mechanics of it is how do people feel about adding a Monday, Wednesday for each of the 3 weeks that it's scheduled to open? currently, we were able to get them to agree, with everybody involved, that we were gonna switch to first available day, starting on the 11th. And that would be the 3 weeks prior to Christmas and the New Year's. If we were to try to add days, we did talk about it. And there probably is a way, but do you guys, I'm gonna throw it out, do you guys think we wanna try to add days? And try to use up the 18 that they gave us in this calendar year?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
What about using over the winter? I've heard a lot of support for having something in the winter to give guys a shot in the arm, and a lot of support for sticking to 1 day a week. And staying away from the multiple days per week. Seems like every time there's 2 consecutive days, the price goes down. Okay. So. I've heard a lot.
You don't hear that, maybe talk about, my thing was that the market is so depressed in January, February. That if you were gonna try to get the time in that we're looking at, the extra days we missed. The December period is the time to do it. And just the way, so the first year we had the rainy year, you got all 3 dates in for that December for Eve. We also got all of Greenwich that year, which is remarkable. I don't ever remember getting every day in Greenwich. But then, of course, the year of the drought, we got, I think, 1 day in, we got 1 day in of 3. And in Greenwich, I think we got 1 day in, or maybe even not. So it's almost like the roll of the dice. You get 2 days the first week, and then you don't get anything after that. Or you get 4 days in a row, and maybe people are crying, or the dealers are not happy, or whatever, so it's such a roll of dice. But I'm just trying to figure a way to access the 18 days that we were allowed. Conversation, I think it's a fair conversation for,
From my point, from all the people I sort of represent, a lot of guys wanted 1 day a week. Brought together.
Well, I think that's available for next year. I was talking about finishing this calendar year off.
I think it's finished. I'm sorry. Like I said, with the Greenwich days, you're gonna have 5 days in a row, right? Pretty good, and you're still gonna have product. So maybe it's worth taking a shot. You're gonna use some of these days. There's nothing that says we can't do it in January. The year started in May.
Should be a lot easier to compare.
So like the 3 years. I've got guys telling me 1 day a week, and doing 2 days a week, for the summer and stuff, and now 1 day a week in the fall. How about 1 day a week in the winter? You know what I mean? Maybe these guys, telling me, see how it works.
All right, guys. Because on the agenda, it just says FYI only or recommendation for future agenda items. We can't, no motion can be made or recommendation to council.
What do we do with the days?
Any possibilities?
No. Or can it be put on the fisheries council agenda?
That's what I'm asking.
Okay. We're waiting for a response, but.
From a timing perspective, we won't know how many days are left until October is done. So you can aim for whatever the next meeting cycle would be. Like if there's not one in November, and there's probably a December meeting then. I've also heard a lot of support for several things in November. I think we've tried to manage for the market at times to maybe try to focus some of the management on what the internet needs.
If I can speak.
And if it's a good opportunity to try it, it's only gonna be a couple of days to crash and burn, then maybe we know that we don't want to do it. That's part of next year's plan.
So you put everybody out, so you know the market's gonna be depressed. You absolutely know the market's gonna be depressed in January, February, but in December, they can never get enough plants. You get guys who don't go to work every day, what they'll do is, they'll bitch about the price going down to nickel or 6 cents, and they'll blow whatever they make. Use that as an average, 2,000 at 25 cents. Or you're gonna go to work the next day in the river, if you go. A lot of these guys that complain do not go. How many, there was like maybe 50 boats out But one day Tuesday, beautiful weather. I was we found 50 boats. It was 200. I was one of them. I know you were. You were there the day you weren't fishing with big boats. Yeah, okay. You worked one day. And I work every day.
I'm gonna go to-
You don't need to,
I didn't say it wasn't, but.
All right, guys,
You're not gonna, you're gonna drop the plate, you say you're going to drop.
I don't wanna stop the discussion, because it's important, but this isn't something that's gonna be voted on tonight. I think what's best is everyone to go back to their, whoever that's we're representing, and reach out to me, and if we'd like, we can put something on this, on the council's agenda for October 2nd. Keep discussing, because it's very helpful for everyone, but just know nothing's gonna be decided tonight. And this is a good opportunity to go home, think about it, and then come up with some type of, I don't know, recommendation. If I can get it on the council's agenda. I get it. But
The one thing I'll ask is if everyone agrees that we might not have it on the staff, is that if it goes on the agenda, that the staff won't have a say, everyone's okay with that. So if it does get on the October agenda,
I can't,
I'm just saying, there won't be another staff between them. So we have to all agree that the Marine Fishery Council, will basically. Our say won't be incorporated into the Marine Fishery Council other than through you. That's good, so we wouldn't get a vote on at this. That's important.
I can't bring any of this discussion.
Is there a December, NFC meeting?
I would assume so.
It's usually-
This is, yeah, this is last.
I know there's a time lag delay because of the posting and all that other stuff. But if we have one at the end of October, the other thought I had, if the Marine Fishery Council wasn't an option for us, is that we could ask the director, and just shaking his head ever since I said that he has the power to change the management area. He could change the schedule. Maybe if it's discussed at the Marine Fishery Council in October, he'll feel more comfortable doing that. But we could use as a reason, it's gotta be a good reason, that it's a historically wet year. And that we weren't able to access the allotted time that we had. That would be our ask, what our ask was. So I just thought those are the two ways, either go through the council and the SAP. Or have the SAP, or even the council come up with a recommendation, and the director either acts or doesn't act. I didn't know any other way to try to get it done. If we have something early December, we can get something maybe for, if you guys want to do something into the January, February time, that would be the time to do it. Because you have enough time to get the regulations in. But I don't think, I don't, so if you want to stop discussion, that's fine, but I was just trying to find a way to get the thought out there, and what we have is available to us.
I mean, do you guys want to continue to discuss this here? No? Okay, yeah, go ahead. Let's take a few minutes because it's really important and I don't want.
Say hypothetically 4 extra days. Would you do deep days in the winter at a big coastal limit? You're really not gonna get part-timers out of bed. It's a little short in the arm for full-time guys. That's how I'm trying to play it. Yeah. That's the sentiment I've heard expressed, is that people just need something to do with it.
Like it at 20 cents, I mean, it's just that.
It might be better than nothing. And this might be the market.
Greenwich is over, they could go to Greenwich and work and catch a day's pay there, but a day's pay at 30 cents, not a day's pay at 20 cents. And I work all winter, and Greenwich is, I know it's not a big East Bay thing, but Greenwich is a big West Bay thing.
Oh,
and that's a lifeline.
Honestly, that could be one of the reasons why guys want to give up. You know what I mean?
It doesn't.
There's nothing in this. But it's not, man, so if guys go to Greenwich, they can go to Greenwich, some guys shouldn't do some.
I did see a lot more guys from the other side of Greenwich this year than I have been. I will say that.
know where to go. Otherwise.
Well, catch wasn't too bad, you know, I mean,
No.
not historically.
I'm talking about when you're working in A section, B section in January, putting it blowing and stuff. I don't have to tell you, where do you go?
Well, with Jerry's point before, though, we're talking about 20 guys. You know, if he's not open.
All right, so
You know,
if
that-
it's 20, if it's 20 guys, open it up in January, see what happens.
Well, 188 and 20 seconds. That's exactly what you just said. You don't care about dropping the price in January, February, but you bitch about opening an extra day in December when you know you're gonna get ice and money if you come down, you're talking to him. Yeah, you know what I mean?
I just think it's 2 days a week, any time of year, I don't care what that is. That's what I'm.
Even though it's a year rid of it,
That's the population, the shellfishers I talk to have all expressed, that they want 1 day a week, that's. You know,
It's a different scene, you know,
They're
the west side,
state, I don't know what.
the west side got paid average of at least 2 cents a piece more every time it opens, if not 4 or 5 cents more at time. So whatever you wanna, I'd love to hear your argument, because what I deal with and all the guys on my side is a lot different story than what's going on the west side.
if I may, I've heard a lot of guys talk about the 1 day a week. And at our board meeting, recently, we talked about mostly doing a 1 day a week schedule, starting May 1st, which is when Greenwich ends. And 1 day a week till the last week of June, when you have 4th of July. But I tell everybody that asks this, and I don't not support the 1 day, but. By my count, and it's 13, but I'll go with the 12 that Anna's talking about. If we had 1 day a week, we only have 7 days open this entire year. As opposed to 12. Now, your guys take 5 of whatever they're making, even if it's 22 cents, 24 cents, 26 cents, and multiply by 5. And you tell me whether they're better off or not. Because if you're making $500 there, that's $2,500 you wouldn't have made if you'd done 1 day a week. Last year's schedule.
Well, if it's, yeah, but you're compressed the 2 days into the summer, but if you got a whole year, you're still only gonna get the same amount of days.
We're looking to expand it in early May, and like I said, if this was last year, we would have used up the 18 days by August. Right? So it's the bouncing ball. I mean, if you start in February, 1 day a week, we could be done at 18 days by the end of, the end of June. It's so.
Well, it's
tough
not,
to plan on that.
it starts in May, because that's when the state gets there,
Well, that's something that we're talking about. I think May 1st would be a perfect day to start the area E, because, especially the West Big, you're basically gonna have a management area open year round. Other than the November and into the early December, you'll have area Greenwich Bay from December to end of April, and then May 1st to October 30th, you'd have area E. But that's not on the table, and I gotta talk about membership, but the board was leaning towards more 1 day a week. I thought we still should do 2 days a week in June and July, just to try to capture the market and capture, the weather. It's usually dry, not like this last year.
What about this?
Okay, Pete Duhamel's unmuted and he just wants to make a comment.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, thanks, Pete.
Yeah, just if you want to change Providence for December, you should have your chance would be to have the council talk about that on October 2nd. So that agenda is not done yet. I would suggest Katie could talk to Connor to see if he's amenable to allowing that to go onto the October agenda. Yes, you wouldn't have a SAP recommendation, but because it's not a notice rule, the council tends to take comment for these things at the meeting, so you could show up individually and make your thoughts known then. But the first thing would be to get it on the council, the October agenda. If it doesn't happen there, it's not going to happen. That's the only chance to get it done. So that's all.
Okay, thanks, Pete.
Thank you.
So the question is, do we want to ask Katie to put it on the agenda, and then we go there and do a SAP meeting in front of the council? we've done before, I mean, I'll have better guidance with my membership, we're gonna have a membership meeting.
I think we should, anyone want to put on board with two groups, they could, you got two
Yeah.
different options at the council.
Yeah, I can bring 4 things to the council, I mean, just.
That sound fair?
Put on the agenda. Okay. All right, so send me all of your ideas. Don't be shy. Any more thoughts on privacy?
I would just say one thing about the one day a week, on a village perspective, you know, having the problems for a week, 1 day a week. You know, we bring a lot of stuff that they don't go at once, and then it shuts down the rest of the week. All right, now a lot of guys, you know, the full timers are still going out and digging, but now you really need, you know, say 200 bags on Monday. Now the rest of the week I get 30, 40. Now, if I'm to get the customers to move that 200, what am I supposed to do with those customers the rest of the week? And then if it rains, the next week after that.
What about a lower limit over multiple days?
She wants to not be. You want to limit you and limit the customers. Everything.
It's about compromise.
Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Maine, they're all not.
It might be a little wanted 2 days a week, 2 days a week, and guess what? We got 20 cents.
I talked to Tony's and cities, they both agree if it was to go on as 1 day a week, we would prefer it to not go more than that.
That's a lot.
This was before when you guys were saying 1 day a week.
Listen, I talk to him almost every day. One day, he said 1 day a week would be the best time.
I'm talking Mark before we were without the shit. We just saying text, it just doesn't make sense. Now he has to bring the product, and now when it opens, now he's not bringing the product.
It's still buying product from Virginia.
I know, but now it opens. Now we shut that supplier off. Let's just say that supplier, you know, all right, say it opens 3 weeks in a row, and then for 3 weeks in a row, it doesn't. He has a supplier supplying him, and then for 3 weeks, he shut them off. I mean, it's, you gotta play the game.
What about the data? You know, all this stuff we deal with.
We're on, you're ordering less time than me, I'm ordering more time, so if anything, it'd be.
It isn't less time, it's just in different days. If you're allowed 25 days and you spread them out for the entire year.
The number was 18.
Well, I'm just, well, it was 18 and then a 4, right?
2150.
But that's my point. Whatever the state is dictating to how many days we have. It's a matter of when you can use it, okay? It might be really convenient for you if it was open 5 days a week for the month of July. I don't know, you know what I mean? But for me, no, it isn't. And for the people that represent.
You know, is it convenient when you would shut everyone off in the middle of January?
Well, you shut people off now. I hear certain limit on guys, you know what I mean? I hear all this stuff.
So you're saying that now in the summer,
In the
you hear that, all right, so
Yeah.
what is gonna be better about that?
If it's 1 day a week, and yeah, what if it blows 30 every day? Nobody's working.
You're saying a lot of what is?
Well,
So we know it's gonna be shit, when we know the market's gonna be.
All right, guys, let's, we'll revisit.
That's the, I mean, that's the balancing thing that we're trying to do.
Right.
You know, small dealers, big dealers, part timers, full timers, price go up, price go down. It's
I
kind of.
like the deals when they make it.
No, well, yeah, well, when I make it,
You take 2,000 pieces at 28 cents, you're making 560. You take the second day that week, if they drop the nickel, you're making 2,000 pieces at 23 cents, you get 460. He wants to forego that 460, and you go on an average day, what you get? You get 500 pieces every day when you go up for one?
regular day?
Yeah, I'm lucky. Okay, and if you're lucky, 500, so he wants to go on the open day at 28 cents and make 140 instead of 460. That does not make any sense, I'm sorry.
Okay, but then you get that, so you lost 360. You lose whatever money you lost, you're gaining another day in the river at another time. I think it's timing, people need steady year-round income. Listen, fishermen need steady year-round income, you cannot work for half a year, it doesn't work like that.
Well, if we go May to the end of October and we have Greenwich as an option, to me, that's year-round management area access.
Yeah, but all I can say, I could argue all night on this. I don't want to take everybody's time. This is the third year it's been open, 2 days a week, right?
Well, it's 3 days the first year, but we got 11 days in during the summer because of the rain.
Right. All I'm saying is, let's try one day a week. Let's give the guys on the east side a shot of the way they want it. Instead of just with what the west side wants. I don't want to play east and west, but I had a lot of guys that all of it that. No, but I'm just not, and from our standpoint, we're getting hit on the price when it's 2 days.
Yeah, but I understand your position, and I get your position as well, Christian, and I get the standing from year round. But in the winter, there isn't gonna be any income with that on off, with it. I mean, there's no business, there's nothing. So you fishing that area is just a waste. I bet you Tony's, all these guys are just gonna start going off of this area.
I personally would spread it, it's actually not days, it's hours and bushels limit, so you could actually get more days with less hours and less bushels in the winter, if you're really worried. about fighting the market.
I will fight tooth and nail, no bushel reduction whatsoever. We did have one years ago, and then I was like, they second that, and I was never, ever, ever.
And I would guess that if you look at bushel limit, that number that we're looking at, 370, is not gonna move.
All right, guys, let's table this for our next discussion. Let's move on. We still have a few items on the agenda. There's a back page, so.
Back page?
Yes, so. I hope you didn't blow it on.
Are there any broken things left?
Yes.
Yes, there are. Okay.
Good stuff, right?
All right, next item on the agenda is reorganization of Rhode Island Marine Fisheries Regulations, Part 4, Shellfish. It didn't FYI, so.
Let's
Yeah.
hit the fast forward.
Yeah, as FYI, you all got the PDF of the edits that have been done. It's really just to make things more clear. It's been organized by like actual species, and it's just all over. No content is actually changed or different. It's just the layout is cleaner and easier to read. So if you have feedback, you can provide feedback. You can send it to me or Pete Duhamel at Marine Fisheries, and if you could provide that feedback by next Wednesday, that would be great. You all have the PDF. I can send it out to you yet again, but it's in the e-packet. Okay.
Okay. Any? All right, next item.
Sorry, Pete has his hand raised. 1 second.
Thanks, real quick. I just want to shamelessly promote this effort. That is like Anna said, it's organized by species now. It's a much clearer read. Give it a read and let us know. We'll look to direct final rule notice this in a week. And the way that works is if anybody objects to it, we'd have to stop it and terminate it and start a whole new process. So some support would be great. Just a heads up and take a look at it. Hopefully, it's a much better read, hopefully, by species. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete.
If there aren't any questions, we'll go to the next agenda item, the exit entry ratio for unlimited shellfish endorsement.
Try to talk quickly. The exit entry ratio was started, I think, back in 2004 when we had the license restructure. We had over 900 full-on licenses back then. And the powers that be wanted to do what they did with the lobster license, if you remember, which is if you had no landings, you were out. We did not support that, so we came up with this exit entry ratio. So in the very beginning, if 3 people left, 1 license was available. And over the first 5-10 years, whatever it was, we were able to get that number down from 900 to like 450 without kicking anybody out of the resource. As we noticed the number of people kind of diminishing, we switched to a 2-to-1 because we were seeing that the number of guys out there was diminishing. And then probably about 5 years ago, maybe more, we went to a 1-to-1. So 1 in, 1 out. Generally, and Anna can help me on this one, the licenses that are available with this 1-to-1 ratio are the 40 to 50 number.
Yeah.
Generally. But this year there was an unusual spike. where they went from, they had 130 potential licenses. Which means a 1-to-1 ratio would be 130 new licenses. But the odd part, or the part that is that 50 of those 130 licenses got an over 65. So in reality, only 80 licenses left. But it's my understanding, the language that they have is they don't count that, the over 65. So if we stuck with a 1-to-1, we'd have the 130. So my organization recommended, I guess they had a workshop on it or something like that.
Yep.
Then we go back to the 3-to-1. It's temporary. Next year it could go back to 1-to-1. But because the unusual number of 130 that left that would be available, and the fact that 130 of these went to the over 65, so they're still active, that we asked that we go to a 3-to-1.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just one question. Why can't you separate the over 65 licenses out?
He's gonna say that. So if that's something I need to make a motion on,
Yes.
I will, and we'll discuss what you just said, because that's our second point, if that's okay.
Yep.
So I make a motion to go from the 1-to-1 exit ratio to 3-to-1, which is 3 out and 1 in.
Second.
1 second, sorry,
Dave, T, second.
I just need to make a new slide.
And that gets us back to what normally has been historically, what the number is for new licenses, which is in the 40 to 50 range. You still have over 65, which is open. You still have a student license that is open, and you still have the ability to buy a person's license in business, which I guess is still happening quite a bit.
All right,
This is something like we see early, right? So they want next year to make it back. to
Shellfish
1.
license.
Yeah.
not every
Yeah.
month.
okay, do you mind repeating
Well,
the motion?
this is 400,
The motion
the multi-purpose.
was, Mike, give me.
That's part of the
package.
To return to,
It's not.
to,
Yeah, it's a multi-purpose stop review that comes on the floor. License. And your point was perfect. We want to discuss that issue, group them all and count them as a whole, not on. We don't have a problem with
What I understand is, anybody get, when you get to be 65, they can find out, get that license.
It's an open license.
So it's, I mean, it looks like it's not fair kind of a deal, but they shouldn't be counted as a regular promotion, because they're not.
Well, this is why I asked Anna to find out how many people in area D are using the 65 license. To find out what the ratio is.
Yeah, but that's really, I don't see what the point would be, how the license is used, because there's a limit to what they can use it for. It's high health plans, and I think it's a limit of 3 bushels a day, right?
Yeah, it's a limited bushel limit, and it's a limited sector, what you can get out of it, from what I understand.
I mean, I don't know how many guys 65 and older guys are getting that 3 bushels a day. I mean, I'm sure.
In area D, I know much.
all right, was there,
So do we have to continue the?
Well, so we have a motion on the table, it's been seconded. Do you have discussion on the motion? Right, hearing none, we will move to a vote. All in favor, the motion is to amend the ratio from 1-to-1 to 3-to-1. It's not up there. Do you have it on the slide?
Oh.
Question?
sorry. All right,
Do you need to put Shellfish unlimited in there at all? I would just put accidentally from working on the freedom.
Okay.
So that's the motion. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, change. 1, 2, 3. And look. Yes. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, so I guess the second part of that is, doesn't need to be discussed here for this year because of it, but I'd like to see going forward, kind of like a combined license total, so it would be combined like student shellfish, multi-purpose, whatever the new restricted, unlimited license under that and over 65. And then go to a 1-to-1 ratio off of that number so that we have a steady number of licenses. You know, so we don't have these huge swings where there's 150 available one year and then nothing. So it would kind of cap everything along, and especially since, you know, with area E, you know, having big swings in the number of participants is not good for management at this time, the way we're managing it now. So until that changes, having not big swings in license numbers, I think would be a good thing.
Kind of your point that you were saying, and basically the town wall. Multi-purpose is counted also when they do this count.
So you're asking for a 1-to-1 for all of the
And all licenses eligible to harvest cargo.
Well, I don't think we're ready to have a number yet because we're working on the 3-to-1, but just in generally change the way you count the licenses.
Because it's not an issue for the other sectors because it's only one license.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. When we have all these licenses, especially when people transition from one, you know, you have a unlimited or a multi-purpose, and let it go to get a over 65, you didn't exit the fishery, but it looks like someone did. So then there would be another one available. So it will just keep that at a it's the only fishery that has that problem because of the it's 4 separate license categories. 2 of them are open.
Yeah, I just want to make, so what, I think what you're saying is you don't want to count licenses that aren't renewed when somebody switches to a different license versus.
So to do that, you just combine all the license numbers, so one number, the number.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So if someone went from one to the other, the number would switch, you know, you would switch the whatever license category.
And you mentioned going back to 1-to-1 next year possibly, which I was already thinking about. I think that this big spike has a lot to do with the restructure of state statute and license categories. So it went up.
And I think the age category of fishing. I think it's really
I'm
driving
I
the.
wouldn't be surprised if it normalized next year.
But doing that would keep us from having to go through this every year.
Yeah, no,
It
makes sense. It's not.
And actually, to Jeff's point, we might actually have a year where there's more licenses than we started the year before. No, I told you, you have a lot over 65 students, you know. Now, is this something to discuss later, or is this, can we make a motion to? I mean,
it would be for this year's license.
Right.
It would be for next year.
So I guess it's the recommendation to Fish and Wildlife to consider that, and to Peter to consider that option, and maybe when we do the whole thing next August. Right, it's you know, it's the whole process over again. We
To
can
add it,
vote on that.
yeah.
To request that be added.
Yeah, so it'll be in the minutes and then it can be a request to have it added to the agenda, a future agenda for discussion. Does that sound good?
Question about the actual physical license. So who is that? Who is in charge of that?
Our licensing office.
Okay, that is dumb. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And it's just causing more problems.
The new ones?
Yes, I can't stand them.
Really?
I heard they have a lot of awful.
But we don't use them like you
You
used
can't,
to.
you know, you can't do the thing. I
Yeah.
have to write for every physical name and number, you know, sometimes it gets wet, the numbers get, big bleeds. Numbers get messed up, we got 100 guys coming in, sometimes numbers are going through your head, you write down the wrong number.
Yeah. Yep.
More people
And-
complain about that than the money going up on the license.
The last,
Yeah, yeah.
I've talked to health department, they need it,
The licenses, yeah.
well, us writing it.
Oh, writing it down. I can imagine that the
Take pictures of
licensing,
People, right? You tell me they want to take a picture of the person.
Yeah, they want a picture of the license, like, they want, like, we need to have something on file, and that's, you know, it was a lot easier when I had the slide that's physical. proof of the
Yes.
car that we got.
Yes.
Yeah, I have to see guys. Now, any guy can come in and, you know, with, you know, anything, I can write down names in high school. You know.
yeah, that is definitely something that should be brought up with our licensing office because they're the ones that have created that change. But I'm glad that you brought that up because I will definitely talk to people
Yeah.
about that.
How do we just?
Hey, Anna, I
Yes.
want to talk about that when it comes to new business, if you guys are just discussing about licenses and stuff. It's so important. What are you doing now? No.
We have
New business.
agenda, yes.
Next item is the Potawatomi sub area 2 closed area discussion. This is FYI only and recommendation for future.
Thank you for putting that up. If I may, the Spawner Sanctuary, which is that triangle there, was established like 20 years ago. And it was part of the, when we got the big money for the North Kingston Superfund site, the government. They said we had to establish a transplant beds that would be closed for 2 years. They wouldn't do we used to do this for the winter, you know, harvest that winter. So it wasn't working out the way we had set it up, so I approached DEM and I said, how about if we just establish an area that I think is very conductive to setting seed both north and south and transplant into that, and that would be a Spawner sanctuary. And that would serve as a biomass, so we could still harvest the other areas that winter, not have to wait 2 winters. Well, I don't think I need help on this, I don't think we transplanted into that when we did the Providence River.
No, we did not.
And so it's been probably 10 years, maybe more, that we've done that. And also something's changed. You see that little red squiggly thing to the west? That's Greens River, Potawatomi River. When we established the Spawner Sanctuary, that was open to shellfish. So now that it's closed, and from what been told, and people are getting arrested at night for digging in there, that it's a really, really rich area now. So what we're proposing is that because we're not utilizing it, because there's an adjacent spawning sanctuary now established because of, unfortunately, because of water quality closure, that we open up this new area as open waters. Now, we still would suggest that we keep it as a management area in the 3 bushel limit. And we ask Fish and Wildlife to take our request and come back with a decision, and we're targeting May 1st of 2024 as a potential opening. It would be 7 days a week with a 3 bushel limit. The reason I'm waiting till May is that I know things take a lot longer than you think they're gonna take. And also that area is mostly hard bottom. So really, it's not that accessible during the winter because it really gets tight. So that would be my suggestion. I don't think it's a voting item. I think it's something that we would put to the next meeting, Katie. But I just want to let everybody know that's what we're thinking. I ran it by the membership last spring and they all agreed. There's been fishermen that have been fishing just on the southwest of that triangle, and they're catching okay, mostly tops and digs, but they're making money. And so I think getting in there, tearing the bottom up, I think is good for an area. So just let it set, so that's my recommendation. Any thoughts on that, or? Yes. The other areas below that are already open, there's no management schedule, but we don't transplant into them. They are available to be transplanted into, but we don't do it, but there's under the management program.
All right, so I have it in the minutes that you have a request for DEM to come back with some type of proposal for potential opening of the area. I think we would come back to you with data that we have from the dredge survey for that area too. If we have that information. So we would come back with that data. Just to take a look at what is in there, what those densities actually look like. And you are correct, we have not had any transplants into that area in quite a while. So I'm not sure when the last time that was actually surveyed in the dredge survey, but maybe give us a chance to do another survey in that area. I'll let Pat speak to that, but do another survey in that area this winter.
Yeah, so we'll be survey that area, and look at past data and have that be presented, and then you guys have like thoughts on. We could try to figure out other ways to have some other data sources too. That would be helpful.
It'd be like a full blown, we discuss it and have maps and charts and graphs and all that stuff, which would be cool. And I'd also ask Fish and Wildlife, and I talked to St. Patrick. Rice would like to offer a shell fisherman to do a biomass survey with you in Greenwich, Apponaug, Warwick, bottom on a river. But I mean, just areas that to kind of get an idea what's in the closed waters. What's available. We have a transplant program that we've been working on, and it's going to be funded next year, and we're looking for sources to go after. Within that kind of, it could be all around if you want to expand it, but just for us, we offer a digger to help you out.
Great.
And maybe put that in my hands. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mike.
Are there any other matters on the agenda? Go ahead, Jeff.
This is a heads up for everybody. Some of you might not be aware of it. We've had some recalls on oysters in Rhode Island recently. There's been some oyster farms that have been sold to other oyster farmers recently. And the press has really gotten it. I'm not even sure if I have it. Right. But what happened was Walrus and Carpenter got split in half. There's the nitty-gritty part who sold to somebody who I know, and the other was sold to somebody else who I know. And one of those two parties got people sick. And wherever Dutch Harbor area 7B is the location of the farm that got people sick. There's been a recall on Rhode Island oysters from that area. It went on in August. Rumor has it, I can't say 100% surety, but it was some very reputable restaurants on Thames Street that had people get sick from, like the morning. And I just the other day we got a call.
Is this Vibrio?
Vibrio, yes. We got a call from the Department of Health that was doing a quote unquote trace back on our oysters. We had to provide them yesterday immediately with our water temperature, our time of harvest, the stuff that we had. What I'm asking everybody here is we gotta have shade. If you're out and you're riding around in your boat and you see an oyster farm without a canopy, something, and they're harvesting oysters, could you please get help? Because that's what makes people sick. We have time limits. It's all, and this is addressing your thing. The health department is going to be like cracking down on everybody. And if Vibrio is found too often in one location, they close it for all shellfishing. If it's considered, I forget the words, more than two people getting ill, we have to do, they go to required measurement stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Bill, he wants to address this, but
To that point, yeah, I believe that.
Yeah.
Incident described qualified as an outbreak, which is where I am to the appropriate control.
yeah, and it doesn't involve plants directly on that as much as it will in the future. But they're required to, if you see somebody harvesting, they have to have a canopy and, you know, in the shade. And hopefully the wild planters will start to pay attention to that too, because it is possible to get, help me out, guys, can you get sick from this plant?
Yeah, here we are.
Mhm.
And it's around.
So like temperature control while you're harvesting is important to prevent it.
Yeah, we have to do a slurry, we put our oysters into a ice salt water bath for like 10 minutes and it immediately, I'm surprised it works. Immediately drops the temperature down to about 45 degrees, which we're required to do. We have to harvest by 11 in the morning, or we have to do this or that. And I'm a dealer, so it varies way to way. Important thing is you see a guy in a boat that's harvested, you know, on one of these aquaculture farms. Make sure they're.
Rice had handed out 40 coolers to its members in July, just because our concern for this, we were able to get a grant. And keep your plants cold. That's what you gotta do. One more thing, I'll be quick. A lot of guys have talked about the bay being too clean, how they reduced the amount of nitrogen going in from the Narragansett Bay Commission 65% back in 2012 to 2015. And there's been concern among the fishermen that the areas that traditionally was set up, which are down bay, have not been setting up, and it's due to a lack of food. We approached the State House and with our concerns, and next Tuesday, the Quahog Commission, or whatever it's being named, is starting at 2:30 at the State House. And basically, it's various shell fishermen, myself, Jim Boyd, Mark Johnson, and other people from the state, Roger Williams University, URI, I think is involved. It's going to be open to the public. It'll be on TV. And basically, we're going to be trying to figure out if there's a way, you know, there's a lot of talk about maybe increasing the nitrogen level during the winter would be very helpful for the shellfish. And but we kind of have to convince water quality and the things that that's a good idea. So this commission is something that's been talked about by a lot of guys around the water, and it's starting to happen. I just talked to Dave before, that nobody from Fish and Wildlife are on this committee. And when we met with the leaders to form this committee or to put our grievance out there, back when this happened in 2012, Mark Gibson was the head of Fish and Wildlife back then.
Yep.
And I approached him and I said, Mark, did Fish and Wildlife get asked to kind of comment on the fact that 65% of the food in the bay is being taken out? And he said, no, they didn't ask for our opinion. Even though scientist from URI, Scott Nixon, I believe his name is, famously said, this is the grand experiment. When you take that much food out of the bay, you don't know what's going to happen. And I think the water quality and the powers that be were a little cavalier and not having more studies or whatever to kind of figure it out. So I'm going to ask the Fish and Wildlife gets put on the committee. We certainly need all your information because you're the smart, you know all that stuff. So that's starting next Tuesday. I guess you can go to the State House and they'll have all the dates, but it's something a lot of people are talking about. It's something we start.
Just point of that, co-ops don't feed on nitrogen.
Algae. Nitrogen feeds the algae.
Correct.
They reduce the nitrogen so we wouldn't have these fish kills or these oxygen. The oxygen.
I just wanted to
Yeah, those events. So they did it for the reasons, but we just got one little follow-up. And when I asked the new water quality guy, Joe, who took over for Angelo, that he said, we don't pick winners and losers. And I was like, well, we just don't want to be the losers on this. So, let you know what's happening. it's something a lot of guys are talking about. You can show up and be there and.
Well, where do you mean at the State House? Where we're later tonight or?
No, that's not the State House, that's the Department of something else. The State House is across the way, it'll probably be down in Finance. Which is the lower floor, I think it's floor 1, and it's all the way to the west.
Are you gonna put out an email to us?
I guess we could, sure, yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, we can do that. I'm done.
All right.
Eric?
Go ahead, Eric.
You might have something in the chat.
Thank you, Eric. Yes, Jim Boyd, going back to previous comment about aquaculture. He just says the Vibrio issue from Walrus and Carpenter was due to improper handling of the oysters, not iced after harvest. Thank you,
There's
Jim.
rumors that it's the restaurant group that got those oysters, shared those oysters, and somebody in the restaurant. Somebody didn't pay attention to temperature control and coolers. That wasn't necessarily the harvester. But
They're a big group.
But the company that got, there are a bunch of quote unquote goofballs that work on that farm that were hired by the new owner and it wasn't very well supervised. Gossip.
Well, that's usually what happens.
Got it.
It's the handling, not those companies.
The crew was the same, so that carried over from the old owner.
Right.
But yeah, they weren't icing on the boat, but the aquaculture breeds species regulated their way of doing it. Without icing on the boat, but likely was both harvested.
Do we have any more, anyone in the audience have any thoughts? Anything to add? All right, hearing none, would anybody be opposed to adjourning? All right. What?
No, I'm not.
Oh, no, this is.
Wait a minute. There we go, please.
Damn.
Got time to talk in there.
Thank you.
I was gonna take that. And we'll maybe, yeah, we should be in touch. Yeah, like October or something.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Maybe I'll see you on the commission, Anna.
Yes, yeah, send me an email.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be
Actually,
helpful.
I'll call Connor and then CC you.
No.
Sounds perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Yes, thank you.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Pretty good. How you doing?
Have a good night, guys.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.